Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Hotline Live with Record Sport. Keith, how's it going?
All right.
All right.
I was really, I thought
not
that was
amazing.
The game that just almost caught fire today. I was kind of went into today's game thinking that would be hell for leather because by the very reason that there wasn't so much on it, Celtic's long since won the title, but I thought it might have freed both sides up to really have a real tear at each other, a ding-dong, and it never just caught fire. It was all a bit anticlimactic at the end, but it probably sums it up where both of these clubs are. They've both got bigger fish to fry. Yes, that was an important game because it's Derby Day in Glasgow, and what's not important about that. But Celtic are looking at a treble. They've got a Scottish Cup final to come in the middle of this month. That's where their focus inevitably will be on. They came at a sort of patchworky team today because of injuries. Didn't quite work for Celtic today. They got the better of the second half. Rangers had the better of the first half. But yeah, shots were fired, but it never turned into the kind of shootout that you were hoping for.
We're also joined by Record Sports' Michael Gannon. Mick, how you doing?
Afternoon, chaps. Afternoon.
How did you see the game?
Do you know what? I think it was disgraceful, unacceptable. I mean, but we came here for a 6-goal thriller, and we didn't get it. I think these two should be dragged over the coals. SFA should be in touch. This is not what we expect.
Shame game, Mick.
This is a shame game. This is not what we expect from this fixture. We've been accustomed to 5 and 6 goal thrillers and all that kind of well. And this was a more kind of, listen, I think you guys have touched on it. It got to a point. Listen, I think a draw was a fair result. I think Rangers probably edged the first half. Celtic come back stronger. But it did get to a point where both teams were like, well, this is not too bad.
I think so, Mick.
Yeah. I definitely had a feeling in the last kind of 25 minutes that there was both sides were fairly content not to inflict any more damage on each other and get up the road and shake hands, and we'll see you next season. And Celtic kind of snitched at the end, big chance at the end, obviously. Listen, it was always enthralling, as it always is, these kind of games, and it ebbs and flows. There's some good and some bad. I mean, again, these games are made for the Rangers team. I think the way that Celtic play seems to suit Rangers. And again, I thought they were a threat in the counter-attack and at set pieces, posed dangerous. Celtic, when they get a bit of momentum and start building their play, they also cause problems at times. Not as much as we've seen in previous derbies. But yeah, it was interesting more than enthralling, and it was it was and a fair enough result in the end, I think.
Could have been a very different game, I think, if Balogun scores in the first minute with the header.
And he should have scored.
He should score that.
He should score that.
If he scores that goal, then we might have got all hell breaking loose for 90 minutes.
I thought as well, in fact, I'll throw this comment at both you guys. Very straightforward. It simply says Johnston was badly missed for Celtic down the right-hand side.
Yeah, he's going to be a big miss. He's such an important player for Celtic.
I thought Forrest was bright and played well, but Kuhn as well. When you take away the entire right-hand side.
Well, it depends what Nicholas Kuhn you're getting.
Very true.
Because he didn't turn up for the last derby and get hooked at half-time.
That's a good point, He came back into Dundee United, scored in that, but you're right, last couple of derbies he's not been...
And James Forrest was bright, but it just didn't quite click for Celtic. And that right-hand side is a big part of that, because when Kuhn is at the top of his game and Alistair Johnson's getting beyond him, the pair of them team up superbly well. They're a big threat. They carry a big threat down that side. Celtic didn't carry that threat today, I didn't think.
No, I agree. We're going to be joined a little bit later on by our resident referee, Des Roach. Before we do that, though, let's talk a little bit about the game in depth. Cyril Dessers, right? I don't even know where to begin. I feel like this has been the Cyril Dessers podcast this season because we've talked about him so much, but 25 goals now. I thought it was a really good goal, really clever finish.
His goal was terrific.
It was terrific goal.
And there was about 3 touches which allows him to sort his feet out to get the shot away, and they were all terrific. From collecting Diamandi's pass, realising that Czerny was stepping it over in the first place, getting onto it, controlling it, touch, bang, shot. It was brilliant striker play. And then in the second half, he's a fresh air swipe when he's probably, well positioned to... But that's Cyril Dessers all over. That's just Cyril Dessers doing Cyril Dessers things.
If you're the Rangers manager next season, Mick, do you keep Cyril Dessers?
Absolutely. Listen, I think we need to get away from this Cyril Dessers thing. He scored a great goal, had a few more chances. That's every striker in the world, by the way. Thanks to made us must have sit on the last minute and scored. You don't get to hear the same rhetoric. listen, Alan McCoy used to miss 4 chances and score the last one. This is what strikers do. They put themselves in position, they miss chances and they score chances. Dessers has missed too many big chances at big moments in big games. I get that. But for what they paid for him and what he does in terms of goals, I mean, he's value for money. I don't think you build a team around him, but you certainly keep him. He's a goal scorer.
You keep him in the squad, Mick. But
absolutely.
If you start next season with Cyril Dessers as your main number 9, your main goal threat, the focal point for your attack, you're going to come up short.
Keith, I'll spin it this way, right? Listen, I thought Almeida was okay today. He scored a good goal. Another one, a couple of chances as well. If you're a Celtic fan, would you take Cyril Dessers ahead of Almeida right now?
That's a big question.
There you go.
Would you, Mick?
I think, would I? Listen, I think there's more growth potential in Almeida. I think he's 23. I think he can be coached. So I think there's more potential in him. So I would take either on the perhaps on the potential aspect of it. But in terms of man for man, in terms of who would you put your hat on scoring the goal or making the pass, I don't think you can write off Cyril Dessers. I think the kind of rhetoric is built up in a few missed chances in the last season and some big chances missed earlier this season as well. But over the piece, he does score a lot of goals, and he's now scored against times.
I'll see you that, Mick, and I'll raise you, and I'll say neither of them will start next season as first choice number 9 for either club.
Yeah, I would go along with that. But what I'm saying is that
handy guys to have around.
The narrative around Cyril Dessers, I think, is really to build up and stay there. And I think it's a wee bit kind of harsh on the big fella. He's never had. He always puts himself in the frame for chances. Listen, got to admire him. He's like Teflon. It doesn't seem to get upset when I miss the chance. No. And occasionally he'll stick one in the back of the net, like today. There's another good finish from him. So I think he's definitely. I mean, what was it cost? £4.5 million quid. It's not an insignificant amount of money, but to get a guy that scores 20-25 goals a season for £4 million quid, I mean, it's like anyone you buy for that kind of money is going to be a gamble. And he's already done it. He scored more than 50 goals for Rangers in 2 seasons. No. So I think this people should maybe lay off him a wee bit. I get why he's frustrating, but I think he deserves a bit more respect than he's been getting, I think, this season.
We mentioned Adamida there, and we've got plenty of comments coming in. If you want to get involved in the discussion, please send your comments in and we'll react to it. Paul says Celtic need a new striker in the summer. Mikey says throwing Johnny Kenny on at the end shows Celtic need another striker in the summer. I think Rodgers prefers Maeda off the left. I was like you, Mick. I thought Maeda did quite well today. Got his goal. But there's just something about him that just doesn't quite convince.
Adamida.
No, sorry, Adamida.
Nah, you know what my problem is with Adamida. And I think he's got all the tools, all the attributes. He's got the physicality. He's powerful. He's got a good he's rapid over 5 yards, and you saw the way he made the space. There was a little turn for his goal. He got fortunate with the goal, takes a big deflection, but he did really well to create that opportunity for himself. So there's so much about Adamida. There's so much going for him. But he doesn't seem to me to be all that bothered about whether or not he gets the best version of himself. And I'm afraid at a club like Celtic, you're not going to survive. You're certainly not going to hold down a starting place. And I sometimes wonder about him. Is he that bothered if he's holding down a starting place or not? I'm not sure. I'm not seeing the hunger and desire. And we're talking, you make the comparison, or Mick does, about Dessers and Ida. All day long, you know what you're going to get from Cyril Dessers in terms of application and work rate. And, you know, you can't ever accuse him of not going to his work. Adamida, I think you can frequently look at him and say, you could be given so much more. And that was another case in point today from Ida. Yes, he got his goal, he did okay, but I'm looking for more from
this
Celtic number 9.
This is also a guy who scored 6 goals in his last 9 games. I mean, so
19 for the season now.
19, so we're holding these guys to a very, very high standard. He said he scored 6 and 9 at the business end of the season to get Celtic over the line. Again,
it's 19 and 53 games though.
Yeah,
it's not, I mean, it's still good. But...
I take the point in terms of strikers that have been around before for Celtic. You look at Kyogo before him and guys going down the line. And, is he as sharp as some of these guys? Perhaps not. And some of these goals might have came in games when the game's been kind of petering out or it's off the bench. So I take that point as well. I'm chucking an Ireland. I go Ireland as well in that 9 games. But it has got held to high standards. I think that the wage. I mean, if Adamina cost £2 million, nobody would bat an eyelid. Because he costs £9 million, people are saying he should be scoring 35 goals a season and winning matches on his own. So it's perception. It's not his fault it cost that. It wasn't his fault Celtic blinked last January and had to pay over the odds to get him. And I still think there's growth potential in him. But then you see the chance before Rangers scored, he's through on goal with a big chance to go 1-0 up right on half time. Misses the chance, and then Rangers got the part and score. So that is what you get from him. But sometimes, likewise, Dessers at the other side. They're actually fairly similar in a lot of ways.
Are you happy with his work rate, Mick? Adam Eder?
I don't think it's a work rate problem. Do you know what? I spoke to Andy Townsend down at Villa Park back in January about him because he'd watched him a lot with Ireland and followed his career. And he said he's got all the tools. He's got the size, the speed, the physique. He can finish. He's an actual finisher. Doesn't think about it. But he wanted to see him a wee bit nastier. And I think he was right. I think he needs to see a wee bit more nastiness, a bit more greediness, a bit more kind of aggression from him. He's a nice big fella, and that's maybe going against him a wee bit. He got to be a wee bit more of a mean streak about him.
He needs a rocket up his backside.
A wee bit. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He needs a wee bit more aggression about his game. Whether or not he can coach that, I don't know. I don't think he's flick a switch or motivate a player. I don't know, but I just think he's a wee bit too nice at the moment. But he's got the toolboxes all there for him.
That's it completely. But this is what I'm saying, Mick. And I've said it previously. You're going to your training every day, and you're looking at the standards and the intensity being set by your Callum McGregors, Dyson Midas, James Foss, all these guys. You would like to think, and you've seen it, and I've seen guys like Alistair Johnson walks in through the door, completely plugs into it, gets it, and understands he's going to have to. It's 100%, or you're just not going to cut the mustard in this company. And it just comes across. And maybe I'm being dead harsh, and maybe he is just a nice big laid back fella, but he's just a bit too lacklustre. We've
got people coming to the defence of Adam Eder. John says he does scored some very good goals in the Champions League this season too, don't forget. 1967 says he does scored in cup finals, Champions League, Glasgow derbies. He's hardly started half a dozen games. Give him the credit he's due. And Gary simply says that Eder criticism is getting a bit boring now, Keith. Sorry, Gary, we'll try and entertain you more as the show goes on.
I'm criticising everybody. Dessers, Eder, bring them on.
Before we bring Des Roach in, our resident referee,
I'll criticise him and all. Come on, Des.
We'll get into him in a minute. But I wanted to get both your guys' take on Raskin. I thought Nicholas Raskin in the middle of the park, thought he was man of the match, and I actually think it's got to a point now where I think a lot of teams will be looking at him in the summer.
I think Rangers have got a massive decision to make on Raskin and Diomande, because they're the two most valuable assets by a million miles. There will be a lot of interest in Raskin. He talked after the game, and he was already talking about, next season, referring to Rangers and what they need to do, and he certainly seems to have an eye on being part of things next season. In one respect, Rangers would be absolutely mental to even think about selling him this summer, because he's by far and away their best player. But on the other, there is so much work required. They probably need to throw a hand grenade into that dressing room, blow the whole thing up, and start from scratch. So do you test the market? Do you see what might be available? And that could part fund what's going to be required, and what's going to be required is a radical overhaul. So do you look to sell Diomande, Raskin, bring in as much as you can possibly raise, and then, as I said, you're starting with a blank canvas, because these guys are there, they've contributed, they're regularly performing to a high level, especially in the derby games. They catch the eye of both of them. Raskin better than Diomande, but Diomande contributes. But this is a Rangers side that is just stamped with failure.
Aye.
So, I think that's going to be interesting, really interesting. And it's one that Kevin Thelwell, it's a dilemma that he'll need to wrestle with, because, they will need to sell. They will need to generate their own income. They can't just rely on getting handouts from the Americans, the incoming Americans. So yeah, I'll be fascinated to see how that works out. But he's a terrific football player, Raskin, and he's destined to go to a high level, I think.
He was really good today, Mick, wasn't he?
I wouldn't sell him now. I think you got to get to a point in this player trade model is selling guys at their maximum value. And I don't think Raskin has hit his maximum value yet. I think you can get good money this summer. But unfortunately, part of a Rangers team that finishing 17, 20 points behind Celtic in the league and end up with no trophies isn't going to end up maximising his value. I think build a team around him next year. Help him with additions. I think I know it's all right saying get a clean slate, but I think you could do with some bedrocks in there to build around. I think he's one of them. Get him in there, another season, get him a new contract. I think it's 2 years left his contract just now.
Aye, 2 years.
Get him a new contract this summer for another couple of years on it to ensure to future-proof him. Get another season under his belt, potentially a better season than this one, and his value will be higher. I know that's a gamble, but that's the player trading gamble. You cash in. I don't think he's maxed out yet. I don't think he's hit his maximum value.
Makes sense, Michael, especially he's now kind of battered down the door to get into the Belgian
He's in the Belgian team.
national side. So, if you keep him a season and he picks up, gets regular starts for that Belgian side, his value will increase.
Not just in the squad.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So regular starts, it becomes a regular starter on that Belgian side who will qualify for the next World Cup. So that is an aspect, but I just feel that Rangers are at a real crossroads in terms of what they need to achieve. I agree with you, Mick, that if it was me, I'd be looking to keep Raskin, but I wonder if that might be part of the conversations that they have to have this summer.
If someone comes in and goes, look, there's 15 million.
It's going to be really difficult.
Really difficult to turn that down now.
That's what I'm saying. Is that it gets to the point? Is that the maximum value we're going to get from him? And it might be that another year they might not get much more than that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the Celtic £20 million barrier when it comes to guys like O'Reilly and Tierney and Jota previously. It gets to that point. You get to a certain level, you're gambling on that future value going higher again, and there's a maximum level in Scotland. So if it gets to 15 million quid, then that's a different issue altogether. But if someone's saying 5, 6, 7, 8 million pounds, and you say no, sit tight. We'll see how we are next year.
It wasn't the most controversial of games, but I do like having a resident referee, Des Roach, on the show. And here he is now. Des, how's it going? I think you've actually muted yourself, Des. There you go.
Yep. No, unmuted. I'm all good, guys. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Thanks for joining us, as ever. Where should we
problem
start,
at all.
actually?
I'll tell you, let's get straight to it.
Let's get right into it, aye.
Barry Ferguson
Alright,
thinks
Keith, go
Rangers
for it.
should have had a penalty kick. Des, do you agree
No.
with the Rangers manager?
No. It's a physical game. Callum McGregor made the contact with Hadji, and all he's done is he's turned his body. Is that not allowed? I
Barry
don't think it's a
Ferguson
penalty.
makes the point, Des, that if that happens in the middle of the pitch, Rangers would get a free kick. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
So again,
Right to
you're
the
allowed
point.
to use your body to make a turn. So I'm sorry, Barry, I don't agree with that for that moment. If it's a foul in the penalty, right, see if you're going to say it's a foul in the penalty area, it's a foul in the centre circle. I understand where you're trying to come from, but nah, it's not enough to be a penalty kick.
I actually think you people do make that comparison if that happens in the halfway line, but that's where there is a higher bar, I think, required, because you're not just given a free kick.
Given a goal, essentially.
You're given a penalty kick.
Aye.
So I think, okay, you might give something for a slight contact in the middle of the pitch, but you don't. There's not the jeopardy involved there of if you've got that wrong, you've given a clear goal scoring opportunity. I think you need to be really convinced it's a penalty kick, and I don't think there was enough in it to be convinced. I think they did get to the right decision, but I do see what Barry Ferguson's point is, that you'd probably get a free kick if that happens in the middle of the pitch.
He was livid.
See
Ferguson,
if you turned that round. If you turned that round and Balogun or Suter is given that decision at the other end, do you think Barry Ferguson's looking for a penalty kick to be given against him?
I wouldn't have thought so, Dave.
Probably not, aye.
Right. So is this going to be the first time that me and Keith are actually agreeing that it's not a penalty kick and it's not a foul?
Hell has frozen over.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
Is it one of those ones, Des? Is it who's in control of the ball in that situation? I mean, Callum McGregor has got his body between the ball, him and Hadji and the ball, and kind of turned him round and used his body to kind of nudge him out the way. Is he ever in control of the ball in that situation, though? Is that a bit like, how when defenders usher the ball out of play for a goal kick and you get their body in the way?
Is anybody in control of the ball at that moment in time?
No, that's what I'm asking. Yeah, so it'd be hard to get a penalty kick when nobody's really in control of it. But what I'm saying is it a bit like that though, when defenders get their body in the way and usher it with no intention of playing the ball, but they're just kind of. It should be obstruction, surely, isn't it?
It's probably I would say it's law 19, law common sense.
Well, that rules me right out then.
I was going to say,
Wrong show.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
in
we
the wrong
don't do that
place
here.
for that, Des. I think here, Jerry is, I'm about to put up a comment, I think he's clutching at straws, but it's all about the fans sending their comments, so I'll ask you, Des. He says, Dessers was fouling Scales at the goal, should have been a free kick to Celtic, not a goal. I think that's very, very, basically, clutching at
I
straws.
don't know how he was fouling Scales. He was controlling the ball. At what
controlling
point was
the
he
ball.
fouling Scales?
Don't shoot the messenger, but
Des,
nothing in that, was there?
No, nothing in that at all. It was a perfectly good goal from Dessers, and it was a great strike. So
Aye,
yeah, I
was a
don't
good
think
finish.
MD could be. I think MD could be linked to overturn that one.
Des, you made a point just before we come on about, and I think Nick Walsh had a terrific game, but you made an interesting point that you felt or feel another referee, a young upcoming referee, should have been given that game today to get the sort of full Old Firm experience and get it under his belt.
Yes, I do. Listen, see, at the end of the day, Celtic have won the league, right? So there's nothing riding on it for them. Rangers are far enough ahead that it's very, very unlikely that they'll be caught. So the SFA have a very shallow pool. If you look at the referees that have been appointed to the Old Firm games this year, Nick Walsh twice, Don Robertson, John Beaton, Stephen McLean. Are we saying that these are the only guys that should be appointed to these games? Now they've appointed David Dickinson, Ross Hardy, coming up through the FIFA levels. This, for me, was the ideal opportunity to blood somebody in. Because the game, let's be honest, we're all walking away from here. We've watched the game, we've enjoyed it. Great. Nick's worked hard, he's done great. Is this not the perfect opportunity to blood somebody else in? Because we can't keep relying on the guys that are currently doing it. We've got to bring the next guys in. We've had Hugh Dallas, we've had Kenny Clark, we've had Stuart Diggle, we then had Craig Thompson and John Beattie come through. Where are the next guys coming from? To me, this is quite a worry. I think this is quite a shallow pool that we're getting, and to not blood them in, who are we getting next?
A bit like a player.
Guys, what do you think?
Yeah, a bit like a player, you blood a young player in, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Bailey Rice or something like that.
I'm not sure where you would go though, Des, to be honest. I mean, I totally get your thinking, but if it was you that was in charge of making the appointments, who would you put in then? Who would you have wanted, given that first taste of the derby to?
Personally, I
Yeah.
think the only two that you could look at would be David Dickinson and Ross Hardy. I don't think Matthew McDermott's anywhere near the level. I think he's been promoted too far above his level at this moment in time. I think David Dickinson and Ross Hardy were your two obvious ones to give an opportunity to.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
No, I agree with you. I agree with Des. I think these guys need to be blooded. And listen, if they go in there and have a bit of a stinker, then we find out. We'll find out if they
Exactly.
can cope. Like you say, there's a bit of a safety net for this one because there's not any real ramifications for today, apart from maybe players win bonuses, but they get plenty of money anyway. So I think, yeah, you're right. Chuck them in and see how they get on. And if they do well, we've got another guy we can count on for these games. No, I totally agree with you.
Aye.
No,
Is there
Michael,
Sorry,
as I
go on,
say, players have to get blooded into a team, as you said, like Bailey Rice, etc. Obviously, Kenny coming on for Celtic today. Referees are exactly the same. They've got to be given the opportunity. Whether they do it well or do it not, it's on their own merit. I just think the SFA lost an opportunity today to give somebody that chance, because what it does is it gives them the chance for next season as well. Because again, these guys aren't going to last forever, and you've got to give people opportunities. And how do you get experience if you don't?
Aye. See, just actually, I was going to ask you this. What is as a referee, I was watching it today, and there was a couple of instances where Nick Walsh could have yellow carded a couple of players. He kept his cards in his pocket. It was obviously Barry Ferguson, I think, late in the game was the first guy to get carded. Are you a fan of that? Do you like that? Like, just trying to, I guess he's trying to keep the powder keg atmosphere to a minimum.
Yeah, well, Barry Ferguson got cautioned at the 83rd minute.
Aye.
I'm watching it and I'm also doing the stuff for the record. Yes, I'm a fan of that. Your job is to try and help the players stay on the pitch. It's up to the players to decide whether they want to stay on the pitch at the end of the day, and their attitude towards it. I thought Nick was, and it's really easy to say that Nick had an easy game. Nick was working from minute one. He'll be talking to the players, he'll be managing them through it. So yeah, I thought I'm not a big fan of cards. If you come out with a card early, then you set your stall out, and it's only going to end one way because somebody's going to end up leaving. If you're cautioning somebody after 8-9 minutes, the opposition will be saying, "Well, you've done my player for that, so you've got to be consistent." So yeah, it's a dicey game.
Is there a word of praise for Andrew Dallas today, Des?
Yeah. I thought he got the offside correct for the goal.
But it seemed to me that the on-field decision was to not let either's goal stand. There was a reaction. Mick, did the flag go up? What happened there?
I think the flag went up, yeah. I think
Yeah,
it was offside, and then we look at the whole thing. I think the initial looking at the first pass was check that was onside. Then obviously that you get Maida, who was kind of lingering beyond the line, but it's trying to figure out if he was interfering with play, because when the ball is in the back of the net, he's drifted into the middle of the goals. But then you can go back and check it, you'll see that he's beyond the post.
Side of Liam Kelly.
Yeah, so he's not his
So
line.
was that what the flag went up for Maida being in the 6-yard box when either shot goes in?
I think so. I think because obviously the angle, the depth of it isn't quite as clear until you get the replays. So I think so. Yeah, I think that was the on-field decision in the check.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't really communicated particularly well over the.
No, it wasn't very clear, was it, Des?
No, it wasn't. But listen, then they got the correct decision, and that's what's
Andrew Dallas did.
Yeah.
Andrew done well.
Can I ask you one as well? I mean, not a loaded question, but are Celtic good foulers?
No, because they're very good. I think they're very good foulers.
No, you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, Celtic's today crime count 18 fouls to Rangers 9. Like you say, no bookings to right to the end. This is happening every week. Celtic are regularly make a lot of fouls, but don't get a lot of bookings. Is that because they're good foulers? I'm serious. I mean, a lot of their tackling is high up the pitch because of the way they play. If they don't win it back, they foul. But is this strictly legit? Should we get more cards for this? How do you see it as a referee point of view?
See, before Mick, I've not actually stripped it back that far. I can tell you from when I'm watching, I would say they make fouls at the right places.
They're just not enough to be the yellow cards, yeah.
It's just they're probably pushing it to the edge, and they're making fouls where it's not maybe a promised attack that can then go on.
Well, it's not allowed to develop into one. I think it's strategic. I think they saw it with Jurgen Klopp early on, and Pep Guardiola did as well. It's almost like strategic fouling. If you foul 70 yards up the pitch and someone's trying to break away, it doesn't look like a bad tackle, but it breaks up the chance for a counter attack. It's quite clever fouling, I think. But if you're an opposition player, supporter, I think a lot of time you see Celtic make a lot of fouls and not get a lot of cards, and it builds up frustration. But that's probably a cute way of playing from Celtic rather than breaking rules or getting favourable decisions, I guess.
What did they say? You don't break the rules, you fracture them.
Yeah, exactly. Bend them beyond belief. Yeah.
Aye. No, I couldn't say because also I'm not involved in that anymore. But yeah, watching it, I do think they got away with some.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
That's your homework, Des. Look into that for us.
I want to report on my desk tomorrow, Des.
Hey, listen, I'm a school teacher and I'm off tomorrow, so you're not getting any homework.
Well, exactly. No excuse.
Aye. Des, it's always brilliant having you on the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us as ever in the Hotline Live.
Thanks, Des.
No problem at all, gentlemen.
Thanks,
no problem at all. Catch you guys.
Thanks, Des. Enjoy your day off.
You too. Yes, I intend to.
Des Roach there. Always like having Des on. Right, time's getting away. Plenty of comments coming in, right, before I let you go, guys. So let me hit you with a few of these. Well, this one actually, I know we've talked about Barry Ferguson a lot. 1967 says, just for the record, as user, obviously trying to keep it a secret. That's 6 games now since Rangers' last victory, and Barry's been in charge for 12 games and won 4. And someone else, I'm struggling to find it though, he says, it was Marzuno actually, Ferguson yet to win a game at Ibrox.
Yeah, that'll be weighing heavily on him.
I mean, he said after the game, Barry Ferguson, he thinks he's the man, he can do the job.
I found that interesting.
Aye.
And I found it interesting because it seems to be a sort of shift in his approach, his mentality. And I think it coincides with, he met with Kevin Thelwell last week. They've obviously had a very long conversation, and I find it interesting that the mood music appears to have shifted. And he's talking in far more, he's not putting his hands in there saying, give me a job. But he certainly, it was only a few weeks ago where he didn't really consider himself to be in the mix. I think it was after Hibs had won at Ibrox, I think. He didn't see himself as being considered as a candidate. I just feel, it might be completely wrong, but just got a hunch that something might have been said over the last wee while that's sort of perked his attention. And I keep coming back to it. Whether or not he gets the job, one thing is absolutely clear. Rangers are miles behind in terms of planning for next season. So, with every day that passes, it becomes more, I think, realistic that they're forced to go with Barry Ferguson because they really need to start making assessments of the players that are inside that squad just now, making assessments on who to keep, who to lose. I think there'll be more in the lose box than in the keep box.
You'll be struggling to keep a lot of them.
Yep. And decisions like the Raskin thing that we were talking about. There are so many things that Rangers need to plan, and the planning should have begun, if not in January, then maybe even last summer. But they're now critically behind the 8 ball. So something needs to happen. It'll need to happen soon. There needs to be some sort of clarity. And you would expect maybe now that particular game, that fixture is out the road, maybe Rangers will address it.
Mick, do you think that was Barry Ferguson's last Old Firm match as a Rangers manager?
I suspect so. I suspect the new regime will want to come in and appoint their own man straight away. And it's an easy PR win, isn't it, to roll out a new manager? I think, listen, I mean, Barry Ferguson walked into a shambles, and we knew at the time it was going to find it hard going because this team has kept going the same way, really. I mean, they've raised it for some bigger games and been hopeless in other ones. That's 7 games at Ibrox without a win. As you say, 4 wins in 12. But Fenerbahce result away from home, Celtic away from home. Again, today was okay. But nothing's really changed. These results could have happened under Philip Clement because the same squad's there. And the same faults that are there. They can play in certain games because they're more open and they can play in the counter, but it's no use for Scotland. But I just think that the new owners, it's more questions for them. They have to get this done and answer these questions. I think I said it in this programme before, the first guy in the job has got a really tough task. And whether it's Barry or somebody else, it's the first year is going to be a rebuild year, and it might not be pretty. I mean, listen, this is what Philip Clement was saying a year ago. Despite having gone close in the league, he was saying, "Oh, this is a rebuild." And well, wait a minute, you've had 5 months already to rebuild, but he wanted more. Whereas this next guy came in as a proper rebuild, almost from scratch. New owners has to get some of these top earners at Ibrox off the books. Not going to be easy that either.
I think the big difference is, Mick, the big difference is that, Philip Clement could, cry rebuild all, but it was his players, they were his signings. Yeah, Barry Ferguson hasn't been able to put his own fingerprints on this squad. He's having to deal with a group of players that Clement had assembled that quite clearly weren't good enough. And making judgments on their character. Are they big enough characters to live in the Old Firm environment, to thrive on it? All these things. That's why it would have been fascinating to be a fly in the wall when Barry Ferguson met Kevin Thelwell, because I would imagine they would have been speaking about exactly those requirements. No. And what is this mystery X factor that clearly the Rangers recruitment department can identify, and Clement couldn't identify it before him. Does Kevin Thelwell leave that meeting with Barry Ferguson thinking he's got a good idea? he's got an idea of what this squad needs. Don't know. We'll be interested.
We're actually joined now from Ibrox by the one and only Andy Newport. Andy, we're just debating Barry Ferguson's future. Do you think that's his last game as interim manager today against Celtic?
I'm not sure. Things stand. I think he's due to see out the last 3 games.
Sorry, I meant against Celtic. I didn't phrase that correctly.
I mean, obviously, I've just come from the press conference with him there, and I'm not sure if you've seen the lines yet, but basically, I mean, he's encouraging the new owners to get a agility on, basically, and get a move on, and let him know if he's going to be the man to lead the club forward. Or just on the fact that time is already sort of quickly marching towards the new season, and obviously you've got a fortnight left of this season, but as things stand, with Rangers due to be entering the Champions League qualifiers in the second rounds, that means they're back in action the 20th of July. You know, that means they're going to have to start pre-season, you'd imagine, the last week in June. So, you know, you're talking, you know, from the day they finished the league at Easter Road on the 17th of May, you know, they've got a month basically to get a new squad assembled, a new manager in place, and get them looking something like a team. And then they've got another month to then get themselves ready for those first Champions League qualifiers. So, listen, I think these are decisions that ideally I think would have already been made. You would know who the next manager was going to be. They'd have targets drawn up. I'm sure those conversations are already taking place. Obviously, with the takeover, my information is that it could be another month, 6 weeks before it's actually all wrapped up, just with the complexities of the deal. You know, will Barry Ferguson fancy his chances? He definitely does. He backs himself. He's just said as much in the press conference, but as I think you have been saying, it's not his decision. It's now down to Kevin Thelwell and the guys like Andrew Kavanagh and the 49ers. I've been asked that enough times. I think he had to do something remarkable when he came in. He's not been helped by the fact that this, I think you've just been saying, this is a squad that are so bereft of belief in themselves, of self-confidence. That he was really always a loser because of that. They're just a squad that can't be trusted to play well one week to the next. So I'm not entirely sure we'll see him back. I don't think he's he said as much. He's getting the intention of being number 2 at MDL. So I think perhaps likelihood is you'll see him back in these seat in the plus sheets just to my left hand side here in the director's box next season in his ambassadorial role. So
Andy, obviously you've just been at the press. Am I right, or am I making things up? I feel a change in his mood and the way that he's answering these questions. It almost feels to me as if he's had his meeting with Thelwell and he's almost been given an indication that there might be something there for him.
I was certainly bullish in the way that he addressed the time frame issue. He was certainly going, get a move on, basically. That's the way. That was my take from it. He was basically urging him to get it done and get it done quickly, because one way or another, whether it's him or somebody else, because
they need to start work.
Exactly. So whether or not he's been given an indication that, or they've just kind of sort of told him, or not fobbed him off, but told him that, listen, we've not come to a full conclusion yet, and this is his way of going, well, get a move on with it. But listen, as I say, he was bullish, and he came out, made a firm case for himself to get the job. He said he's not scared of making the changes that need to be made. He knows what changes need to be made. So, as I say, I just think he had a couple of big wins, but I think he needed to show on a more consistent basis for certainly the fan base to consider him to be a realistic contender.
Rangers haven't won a solitary game in any competition at Ibrox since February, when Clement was in charge. And I'm not giving Ferguson a pass for this, but I would put forward the argument, it doesn't matter who the Rangers manager is. That's a really mad indictment on the players that are there.
Well, I said some time ago, and I know it sounds topsy-turvy, right? But this group of players are so imbalanced, so flaky, that you actually can't make an assessment on Barry Ferguson and his coaching staff based on results. And I know that should always be a results-driven business. A manager lives or dies by the result. But in this particular instance, you've actually just got to look at what your eyes are telling you. Is he getting something? Is there something there? Is he making improvements? The results haven't been improved greatly. But is he a guy with his staff that are capable of moving Rangers in the direction that they need to travel, or is he not? And that's what you've got to try and assess, and it's really difficult because the results, ordinarily that's your measuring stick, but it's a wonky measuring stick.
No.
In this particular example.
Keith, I used to get asked before Philippe Clement got his jotters, was it right that he should be under pressure at times when results weren't going their way? And I said I've defended him for a long time because I thought the issues at Ibrox predated him, the recruitment issues, the club was off the field, and I think in some ways, listen, he had to go when he had to go. So the results had gone too far, and his explanations for them just weren't washing anymore. But you're absolutely right in terms of, Barry Ferguson's walked into a dressing room that is,
a shambles.
Yeah, and it's in terms of mentality. There's guys in there that just aren't cut out to be Rangers players. It's the squads in terms of how it's balanced in terms of number of players in positions, even just basics like that. Is it right? The money that they're paying for these guys. I mean, you're talking about. He was asked about Daniel on for £1 million. A guy that I think if they met every one of the clauses in his signing fee from Feyenoord would have cost £6 million. You've got Oscar Cortez, never got off the bench at all. They're going to have to pay £4.5 million for him this summer. I mean,
if I was the Americans, I'd be getting my lawyers all over that.
Absolutely.
They got the seats.
Barry Ferguson had to deal with. I mean, it's incredible that these kind of just such poor decisions have been made, but not just made once or twice, but have continually made. I mean, you look at Badger Army today. Didn't have a bad game today, but there's a guy who's cost £3 million. Is he delivered anywhere near value for that money this season? Not at all. So, I mean, you can go on and on. There's just the recruitment issues at this club are fundamentally the reason why they are where they are right now. 17 points behind Celtic, having, you've got to say, had the better of Celtic this season in the head-to-heads. Two wins and a draw. That's just remarkable. How can you have got yourself into a stage where you edge your biggest rival in the head-to-head and you end up 17 points behind them? It's bonkers. So
because you keep getting beat by St Mirren and Motherwell, and yeah.
Today was the 15th time they've dropped points this season. 15. I mean, these are the fundamentals that need to be addressed this season. Rangers are not a good squad and are not a good team, and it's been like this for too long. I mean, Rangers fans here, if were it not for the fact that there's a takeover on the horizon, we'd be walking out of here with absolutely zero hope for the future, because Celtic are so far ahead of them on and off the park. It's alarming. So that's what. It's a huge job to be done here this summer, and that's why I think Barry Ferguson's suggesting they get a move on with it, because it really is a huge task.
Andy, we really appreciate you with your cameo today on the Hotline Live.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
We know you would have been up to your eyes in post-match duties. Before we let you go, though, Singing the Blues says, is Andy filming on a Nokia 3310? We can actually confirm it's actually a bit of string with two cans at either end. Your signal
a very old
keeps going a wee bit,
iPhone.
Andy.
I've not been handed the new gear, so I'm afraid it's
an
old SE, I'm afraid. So
very good point. Very good point.
Hey, guys.
Andy, it's always a pleasure.
Cheers,
Thank
man.
you very much.
Catch you later.
Cheers, Andy.
Andy Newport there. Very good of him to join
It was
in.
very good of him.
I actually think that brings us to the end of Sunday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Mick, it's always a pleasure having you on board.
No worries. Not good fun,
Thank you
boys.
very much. Thanks very much for all the comments in as well. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow, so hopefully you can join us then too. Keith?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. Cheers.